Hi, everybody. Hope you're well. Today, I want to talk about using AI in type 1 diabetes management. So, AI is everywhere. It is something that I admittedly had my head in the sand about. I didn't really want to learn it. I was trying to kind of hoping it would just go away, but it's not. At my day job, I'm a web developer, and I was recently at basically an all-day webinar in which they had me really learn some basics, but also just how to use tools on like a more broad level. And while I'm still learning, I immediately started to see the potential for type 1 diabetes management. And after playing around with it for really just a few days, I'm kind of blown away at how effective it can be. Honestly, it can really be like really speaking to a diabetes educator. So as opposed to getting all this generic information from Google, or maybe being lucky to know somebody that has answers to your questions, I'm really finding that it's conversational, it's thoughtful. The way that it responds can be set up to be very comforting and reassuring, and the answers that I'm getting are genuinely useful. And so, what I wanted to show today was a custom chat GPT that I am working on that I think could be very helpful for people who are looking for some additional methods of getting answers to their diabetes questions. Now, I'll preface all of what I'm going to say here by admitting that I'm a complete amateur in all of this stuff. I literally just started learning about it last week. So if I say things that aren't fully accurate or if I'm using the wrong terminology, please in the comments correct me. I want to learn and get better at this. And so by no means am I saying that what I'm doing here is the best way to do it. I'm just basically sharing what I'm learning as I'm learning it. So just a quick overview of how I understand AI, as opposed to like a traditional chat or search engine like Google. With AI, it's basically ingesting all of the data that's ever been on the internet. Plus, it's also including conversations that other people have had since AI has been generated. Now, AI is artificial intelligence, and as the name suggests, it tends to learn and it gets better as it receives more input and conversations from users like you and I. And so you'll kind of be shocked if you haven't used it before at how it actually feels like you're talking to a person. It's weird in a lot of ways. Now, it's by no means perfect, and there's lots of stuff that I'm sure is going to get better as time goes on, but it's like I said, it's amazing. So I'm going to show some examples of what I've created and how the answers can show up. But I mean, like even as another proof of just what it's capable of, the thumbnail for this video, I used ChatGPT to create that. And essentially I made a prompt and I said, okay, here's what I want you to spit out. You go through iterations of it by writing different things, and it can turn data or text into images. So just another example of just how incredible it is. So I'm going to stop talking so much here and I'm going to instead share my screen so I can show some of the things that I would like to demonstrate. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here, so hopefully this is big enough. I'm going to zoom in just so it's a little bit bigger. Okay, so what you're looking at here is it's a custom chat GPT that I created as a subset of like the larger chat GPT. So essentially chat GPT you can think of as like Google, and then you can create your own segmented versions of that are customized for different purposes. So in this case, I wanted to create one specifically for type 1 diabetes, advice, guidance, questions, all that good stuff. So not only is it going to by default just search the entire internet for things related to type 1 diabetes and use its natural AI to try to answer that, but I also gave it some prompts, some things to ask you, such as like how did you sleep, how has your blood sugar been, et cetera, et cetera. I also asked it to specifically look at certain databases or repositories of content. So for example, I gave it the Juicebox podcast URL. Same thing with Integrated Diabetes website, a few other leading YouTube creators. And so it can really target a lot of that stuff to not just pick up the normal things that you would get from a Google search, but also maybe even pull in text transcripts to use that for its responses. And so what I could do here is share this link with anybody. This is completely free. Now, right now, you would need to create a free account with ChatGPT in order to access this. There are some things down the road that I can do to make this usable without even having a ChatGPT account. But again, ChatGPT is free, so I'll put the link to this in the video description, and feel free to create a free account and test it out. I think I'm honestly going to start using it myself. So what I would like to do is show you a few examples of how this could work. And so if I switch over to this tab here, I've created a few different personas. So basically pretending that I am various different people to show you how the responses in this tool could work. And so for this first one, let's pretend that I'm a single parent with a young child who has type 1 diabetes and is using an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor. So here is the prompt, basically telling it, again, pretend that it's a human. I'm talking to my diabetes educator. So I have a 5-year-old son. They use this equipment, and recently they've been going low after their recess at school. I've tried making some adjustments, but it's still not working so well. So what should I do? So let's take this prompt and let's throw it into the Diabetes Companion GPT. It's going to first search the database. And here's the first thing that's kind of interesting about this is it's giving you like, again, it's responding as if it's a person. You know, it says you're doing an incredible job of blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, it's weird, but it's nice to see that. Now, as we step into the actual recommendations, it's thinking. So it's reviewing what I said and it's asking if the lows happen at the same time after recess, if the drop is sudden, how long recess is, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here I've done something beforehand, which is to upload a clarity report. And that's something I can get into with another one of the prompts. But one of the amazing things you can do is you can actually go over to Clarity if you're using Dexcom, or I think Libre has some online tools as well. But as long as you have access to your chart data, you can download a given date range. You can upload it into ChatGPT and it analyzes it for you instantly. It's honestly, it's amazing. So it's asked some questions. I could respond to these. So for example, let's see, the lows tend to happen at the same time after recess. I'm going to say, yes, the lows do tend to happen right at 2 p.m. So it's going to then basically take what I've given it and now give it some more next steps. So at 2 p.m., your son may be experiencing perfect over insulin. So what it's assuming here is that I've eaten, or my child has had lunch before the recess, and now that insulin is peaking, and that's usually why the insulin sensitivity is increasing, and then the blood sugar is coming down. So here are some suggestions. Again, read this. It's amazing. It's what it's saying to do is if since I told it I'm using an Omnipod, it's saying I could aim for a particular higher target by using activity mode. I never personally do this myself, but it's not a bad idea. Have a pre-recess snack, something with fat, protein, and carbs. Adjust the lunch bolus. Now, truly, the amazing thing about this is I could go deeper into each of these things, and it's going to keep interacting with me on a very personal level. So it's not just spitting out generic data. It's actually specific to me. Another really cool thing, let's pretend that I wanted more advice in terms of how to interact with the school nurse. It's actually giving me a template of what I could use to provide that nurse right away. And I'm sure that with my prompting, I could also ask it to adjust this. I could, for example, say, please adjust sample nurse to reiterate the fact that my child is unpredictable. So it took my prompt and now it's going to adjust the note, acknowledging the fact that my child is unpredictable and that might require some further adjustments. So again, you could go as deep as you want with this. You can even have it spit out like a 504 plan for you. Lots of incredible stuff. So that's just one example. Let's look at another persona. So here's one that I created where it's an adult with type 1 diabetes. They have an office job, but they're typically very active. Now, what happens when they are not active and they're stuck at their desk all day and their blood sugar goes high and it stays there? So let's throw that in as a prompt. Okay, so again, it's giving me like a very human response to my prompt. And then let's look at why it's happening. So I would agree with this too. So on the days that I'm not so active, my insulin sensitivity is decreased. It's likely that I'm in meetings and I'm maybe a little bit more stressed, and the meal timing could be different. So here are some options. Use a higher basal profile. Now in this prompt, I didn't tell it what kind of pump I was using, so it's not going to give me specific recommendations. I could actually provide it some some specific detail in the Ask Anything field at the bottom to give it more data so that it gives me a more detailed answer. Pre-bolus a little bit earlier or more assertively, midday mini movement breaks, adjust my correction factor. So these are all legitimate suggestions that, again, this is just the first level. You could take any one of these. So let's say I like this one, but I wanted a little bit more data. Or please provide more. So we're talking about pre-bolusing and how to do it, why to do it. So look at this. I asked it to give me more context. Now it's telling me a little bit more about Humalog, when the peak action time is, when the onset, how long it lasts. And this will give me a better understanding of how to pre-bolus. I could, of course, tell it about the food I was eating, and I could ask it to identify like what it thought the glycemic index and load of that food was, so it could contrast that with its pre-bolus suggestions. And you can get as detailed as you want with this. Now, of course, you can't take this without a grain of salt. Like you have to understand that it is coming from an AI tool, but it's pretty amazing. I mean, it really, really is like talking to a diabetes educator. Now, lastly, let's forget the last persona, and I simply just want to show how easy and cool it is to have the data uploaded and to review it. So I'm going to say, can you please review my glucose data test days and provide some feedback and recommendations? And so again, think about this. Like this is exactly something you might ask a diabetes educator or your doctor. So I'm going to upload, I uploaded my 14-day summary. So that was right here. The way I did that was it was already set to 14 days. I just downloaded this file and I then dragged it into the Ask Anything field. And so now it's looking at that data. It's looking at my time and range, which actually was not that great for me over the past 14 days. I'm usually much better at this. But let's see. I was fairly high and I had not a great A1C this last 14 days. So this is kind of good because maybe it'll actually give me some useful recommendations. So I've been pretty good overnight and in the early morning. My highs have been between 1 and 4, especially on weekdays, which ironically, honestly, is when a lot of like when lunch will hit me and then I'm kind of stuck at my office or my desk before I go to the gym. Okay, so I got pretty good time and range. I haven't had many lows. Okay, so since it identified the 1 to 5 time period was the one that in which I struggled the most with, it's asking me to, again, potentially create a second basal profile that's a little bit stronger during that time period. Now, that doesn't work so well with an Omnipod, so let's actually tell it that. So let's say this is a good suggestion, but I use Omnipod, so I am not using a specific basal. What would I do? Okay, so I've told it that I'm using automated mode, and that means that I can't necessarily just create a separate basal profile for 1 to 4. So what I can do is if I wasn't already on the lowest target blood glucose, which in this case I am, I could lower it. So if I was at 120, I could go to 110 or 100. I could also use, let's see, this one's interesting. Use activity mode strategically, but in reverse, but not using it on desk days. Okay, so I don't turn this on, so this one isn't necessarily relevant to me. I could do manual corrections. And again, it's telling me the time in which to consider them, which is great. And then here is another strategy for a day in which I had a ton of meetings in terms of pre-bolus timing, lowering my targets, incorporating exercise, and then preparing for my afternoon, in which I typically do the exercise. Furthermore, it asked me if I would like to schedule or set up like some targets and schedules. And so if you say yes to a lot of these things, it'll spit out Google Documents or other resources that you can then download, fill out, and then plop back in here in the future to further enhance your feedback. So that's just like literally just scratching the surface of what this can do. But I hope that that demonstrates how powerful this could be and how I'm going to continue to refine this, come up with better videos to display some of the capabilities. maybe some specific examples. But I would really encourage you to get into this if you think this has some potential. I will share, like I said, that custom GPT in the description of this meeting. Please feel free to check it out. It's going to get better as more people ask more questions and work their way through it. In the comments, I would love to be educated in terms of what I could do better, where I should learn more about this stuff, and just what you think. I think this feels very real and legitimate to me. Now, I still know that I'm obviously the ultimate decision maker in my own treatment, but I think this has some really good ideas and there's a lot of potential here. So that's just a starter. I hope this was helpful and I will talk to you soon.